Hello, welcome everyone. Happy Earth Day. Panelists, feel free to join me here in this digital space if you would like. Welcome everyone to We Hear You, a roundtable with youth, climate, artists, and activists. We are so happy you are here. I know we have folks joining us from all over the world today. We ourselves are spanning all the time zones. Excuse me, I know we have folks who are at 7:30 a.m. and folks who are at 11 p.m. Wherever you are, please feel free to be at ease, grab a tea, grab a snack, listen in whatever way that feels good to you. Today's event is live captioned and we have popped or are about to pop, thank you Wijdan, access instructions in the chat. You are also welcome to just click the button that should be at the bottom of your screen that says closed caption to access those. And my name is Nasema Cassidy, and I have the great privilege and joy of guiding today's conversation. I'm a fair-skinned woman with dark brown wavy hair. I am wearing a black shirt with little daisies all over it. I am sitting in front of some black and white photography, a little cactus on my left, your right, and some pink purplish tulips. And with me today is a dream team of young women who are working in a multiplicity of ways on climate, as artists, as activists, as students, teachers, scientists, and gorgeous human beings. Welcome, panelists. Thank you for being here. Would you each take a moment and introduce yourselves and let folks know where you are joining us from today? Feel free to hop in.
Yeah.
I would like to start. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashani Kottigay. I'm a junior in the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University, and I'm studying science, tech, and international affairs and theater and performance studies. They're both mouthfuls. I'm from Colombo, Sri Lanka, and I'm a dark-skinned woman with long black hair, wearing a blue sweatshirt, surrounded by many windows in my best friend's childhood bedroom in front of a pale yellow wall in Eugene, Oregon, which is where I am for this semester.
I'll go next. My name is Eliza Palter. I'm a recent graduate from Georgetown and I'm based in DC now, but I'm currently back home in Dallas, Texas. I'm a white woman with straight blonde hair sitting in front of a mostly white background with a small potted plant to my side. And it is a beautiful gray day outside.
I'll go next. Paulina Witte from Kenya. I'm having a dark skin, very dark one. I'm tall actually, and I'm putting on a dark blue sweater. And my background is white, plain white. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya Smith. I graduated from the School of Foreign Service this past May. I am a woman of color. I am a Black woman, also Filipino. I have curly hair that defies gravity, sticking straight upwards. I'm wearing a white dress with a star-covered shawl, and I am sitting in a bedroom.
Awesome, thank you. And I want to introduce Wijdan as well, who is a producer on this project. Wijdan, will you say hi?
Hi guys, my name is Wijdan Khatib. Happy Earth Day. As Caitlin said, we're so excited to have you guys here. I am a light-skinned hijabi woman wearing a white shirt and a pink hijab that matches my pink wall.
Amazing. And I should say too, we are missing a panelist. We're missing Bea, who is going to hopefully be joining us at any moment from the Philippines. We are crossing our fingers for technological cooperation. And if not, we know she is with us in spirit. Fantastic. So thank you, Wijdan. Thank you, all of our panelists. It is an outrageous pleasure once again to be in this digital space with this particular circle of women and with all of you attending. Thank you for being with us. This gathering has been made possible through collaboration with the Lab for Global Performance and Politics, the Georgetown Environment Initiative, Georgetown Humanities Initiative, the Swedish Embassy in Washington, and Sweden's Royal Dramatic Theatre, which is also known as Dramaten. If you would like to learn more about these amazing partner organizations and the good work they are doing, please check out the chat where we're going to share a little bit more. I also want to acknowledge quickly at the top here the many individuals who have made today possible. Lynn, who is with us sort of in this space but invisible to you, and Candace in Georgetown's communications department, the Mock COP 26 leadership team. We will hear more about Mock COP in just a little bit. Pete Mara, Derek Goldman, Eric Donahue, Vanessa Gilbert, Laura Mertens, Toby Clark, who is playing our jams today, Role Flores, Jennifer Eagleton, and Asia Dubois, who did the beautiful poster design for today's event. It takes a village, y'all, and I am so glad that these folks are a part of mine. As we begin our Earth Day conversation, I would also like to offer land acknowledgement as an act of love, an act of recognition and commitment. Today, I am joining you from New York City, the sacred unceded land of Mannahatta, the land of the Lenape peoples. Our US partner organizations are in Washington, DC, on the land of the Piscataway peoples. And together we acknowledge and honor the Lenape and Piscataway tribes as the past, present, and future caretakers of these lands. We offer our deepest gratitude to them, to all Indigenous stewards, and to the earth that we stand on. And we commit to becoming better stewards ourselves. If you would like to learn more about ways to honor native land, Wijdan, who is my amazing hero of the chat function, is about to offer a few resources, which we invite you to explore there. So in the last year, I have been thinking a lot about the power of smallness. I think for me, this started with Adrienne Marie Brown's book, Emergent Strategy, in which she writes, "Small is all." I love that. And more recently, I have been reading the collection of Greta Thunberg's speeches called "No One is Too Small to Make a Difference," which was given to me by dramaturg Jakob at the National Theatre of Sweden. So when a few weeks ago, Maya shared her poem, Small Acts, with me, I was sort of floored. Maya was like, you read my soul in that moment. And I am super excited that Maya has agreed to share that as a kind of incantation to begin our conversation today. Maya, would you read?
Thank you, Caitlin. Small acts. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can change the world. Your action determines that change, be a positive or negative reaction, but nothing is worse than inaction. Inaction is a whisper that tells you, don't do. It says that you are powerless. It says you do not matter, therefore you should not care. So you let yourself accept a lie, standing unmoving and immobilized. Inaction is action of fear, in control. Let go of the fear, get out of the hole. Our oceans are at stake. Our planet's lungs burn. There is smog in our eyes and plastic waters churn. Animals silently sulk towards extinction, crisis abroad, all the war and the violence, social injustice as our nations grow silent, but do not be inactive. The size of the problems do not matter. We know collectively they are great. Great, big problems need small, effective answers. And that answer is you. And hope says to move. Hope says to listen and know when to speak. Hope says to love both the strong and the weak. Hope says to choose, leave an impact on the world, because the tiniest of murmurs make the largest of quakes. What would you choose if nothing were at stake? If you're going to choose, then join the millions to make the world of tomorrow is only a reflection of today. Use where you are, this Zoom, any place, to empower yourself to define your own great. Never underestimate the power of one. Your small acts will change your world. So change our world. There is work to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. I have to say, one of the things I love most about this poem is that you mention moving. You say hope means to move, or is to move, and to listen and to love. And I like thinking about those three things as like actions that have great consequence in the world, right? There's so much we can do, and those are under that umbrella of really meaningful, impactful actions we can take. Thank you. I should say before we jump into conversation that we're going to open the Q&A chat function for folks out there in the audience. If you would like to offer us questions over the course of the next half an hour or so, we will get to those in a little bit, and we invite them and we thank you for them. I'm going to turn now to the group, and again, just noting that folks, due to technology, are kind of coming and going, and that is the beauty, the beautiful challenge of Zoom. But to this group, a few weeks ago, I asked you how you would like to use this time together. I actually asked you to send me the questions that you would like to be asked, that you would like to ask other people. And I am now going to take those questions and offer them back to you. And I invite each of you to respond at whatever point, in whatever way you would like. Okay. So I want to begin by asking each of you to speak a little bit about the work that you are currently doing. I know you're all doing 7 million things. Don't feel obligated to, share all of it, although you're welcome to. Just give us a sense of what you are working on, that you are getting joy from in this moment, and perhaps chat a little bit about how that work got started.
I can go first. So I will chat briefly about two things that I'm working on. One feeds the theater artist side of my brain. I identify primarily as a theater artist, director, and deviser, and I find great joy in both of those things. Obviously, with COVID, it's very difficult to make in-person theater happen. So exploring the different ways that I can create and contribute to the conversation during this time has been very challenging and also interesting and a little fun. Sometimes a little heartbreaking because I miss being in space with bodies. But I'm currently working on writing and devising a play that focuses on, it centers around a conversation looking at the tradition of Boy Scouts in America. It's also a science fiction play. It's a little bit off the wall. I think it's pretty funny, and I'm enjoying finding ways to express comedy and humor in this sort of cloud of I think a lot of grief that comes with the conversation around climate change. And then I am also working with an organization that's based in Bonn, Germany, called One Resilient Earth. We weave together art, science, ancient wisdom, and new technologies to regenerate communities and start a conversation around climate grief and how we can adapt as our world changes. And as hopefully as things start to get better, if we are, we will continue to need to adapt, and starting a conversation around what adaptation looks like, even as we ameliorate our relationship with the environment, because it's an ongoing conversation. So I do some creative and development work with them. That's me.
I can go. I was supposed to be in the Philippines last summer working with this incredible tourist company called El Nido Resorts. They're like a 5-star luxury resort, but that also does incredible work in their communities around sustainability and empowering women and individuals in that community. But because of COVID, I couldn't go, but I did an independent research project with them. They were really curious about how sustainability awards and certifications are given out, and on what basis, and whether they're really global and universal, or have like Eurocentric and North American standards. And my research said yes. I haven't been able to write up that data, but that really got me thinking about the implications of colonialism and what colonial legacies are on the environment and how environmental policies practiced. So I've just gotten my thesis approved, and it is going to be on national parks in Sri Lanka and the colonial gaze, and how colonialism is not just by an external factor, but is also internalized by the urban upper middle class and how they interact with wildlife and nature. And I'm hoping for it to not just be a written scientific piece, but to also translate into some sort of performance or art. And I'm really excited to start my fieldwork for that this summer in Sri Lanka.
Okay, I'll go next. I actually founded a community-based organization that within the community-based organization, like we do train farmers on best practices of organic farming and agroforestry. So with this, we have like two programs. We have the community program and we have the school program. So within the community program, we use like local leaders like the chiefs and the village elders. So there are always like weekend updates within village. So after the updates from like the local leaders, we come in and train them on why they should adopt the organic farming methods and the importance of the organic farming methods. So on that sessions too, we also train them like on the best varieties of crops they could like grow. For instance, we always have like, sometimes we have long periods of dry season. So during long periods of dry season, the crop yields go down. So we feel like when the crop yields go down, they are losing a lot. So like we give them the best like varieties of crops they could plant. Like right now we are working on cassava and sweet potatoes. Like they are drought tolerant. So those are the things they plant, and we tell them how to do value additions that can like give them a lot of money. And with this within the school programs, we have like with Friday for Future, it's like a different strategy of Friday for Future. So every Friday we go to school and tell them how to make like kitchen gardens and like plant trees. The trees can help them maybe to like have desks, because you realize that in the villages, people sit down, they don't have like desks or something. So like if they plant trees and the trees grow big, they can use that to make desks. And the kitchen gardens, they can use it to have their meals in school when they don't have anything to eat. Yeah, so that's what I'm actually working on right now. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for sharing. It's amazing catching up and like hearing what you all are up to. I am currently an ESOL educator. I teach English to non-native speakers with Baltimore City Public Schools, certified through Teach for America. For me, environmental stewardship is service, but more importantly, it's community. So that means getting where people are and creating connectivity and collaboration with where I stand. And that's what I attempt to build and encourage my students and all of the people and organizations that I get to access because of where I am right now.
Thank you. Wow, I feel like we could just speak about all of this work, and I hope we will for hours and hours. Are there particular strategies that you find yourself using? One of you had asked about technology, the use of technology. Paulina, I know that MockCop is using technology. MockCop is an amazing gathering of international climate activists, which I know Pauline will say more about later. But are there other ways of working that each of you are particularly mindful of as you're doing this work?
I wouldn't say there's a particular method I'm particularly mindful of, but there is something I've been trying to interrogate a little bit more, and that is technology. I'm in a really cool class right now called Designing Development in Africa, and the entire class is based around debunking this myth of digital utopianism, this assumption that tech or an app or a laptop is what's going to solve like world hunger and world poverty and sustainability and things like that. And the most successful case studies that we've looked at are ones where technology is a supplementary tool. And as Maya was talking about, community building is the primary tool, where you're working on this like reciprocal relationship of educating one another on the importance of the environment and how you can reconcile your livelihood and economic development with it. And then technology is just a supplement to it as opposed to at the center of it. And I found that humanizes everything more and has much more buy-in and is more attractive to people, especially given the history of failed technological, startups and things like that in the global South. I feel like we're moving in a direction where people have lost faith in that, and rightfully so, because of how exploitative those experiments can be. So yeah, that's something I'm trying to think more about as opposed to using.
Yeah, super interesting. Ashani, you're reminding me, I was just reading about the carbon footprint of emails, and I had no idea. So I'm now thinking very much about the sort of imprint that technology makes, and the importance of community, as many of you have said. Yeah, for sure. Other strategies or even values that folks are carrying into this work.
Yeah, I think I've had a privilege and a blessing over the course of my almost 23 odd years on this planet to enter into spaces where my body would typically deny me access. As a youth who grew up lower income in Northeast Washington, D.C., not having access to capital and virtually just money, usually doesn't afford you the type of opportunities that I was able to experience. So it was in part, my success was due to the organizations that led me and pushed me through. Like, it does take a village. Some of those organizations include Capital Partners for Education, the Abramson Foundation, America Scores, DC Scores, and these types of youth organizations and mentorship organizations are so critical in these type of communities, because Einstein might be trapped in the hood, but because Einstein doesn't have access to resources, he stays there. And so when I think about environmental stewardship, when I enter into spaces, I think about what are the gaps and what are the needs and what resources and people and communities am I already accessing that I could provide that resource and that need and fill that gap. And so people think solving these huge, big problems takes huge, big solutions. And sometimes it's as simple as having a conversation. And sometimes it's even before that moment, stepping into an environment, silencing your mouth, sitting down, listening, observing, thinking, and feeling. So when you enter into spaces and you're coming to enact change and to support, first spend a lot of time letting the community and letting the people tell you what is needed before you go out and determine what those needs are. I think that's key. And I think one applicable example, if I may, Teach for America, they do these trainings to support their teachers so that they're really good leaders in the classroom. And I joined the CMAC, the committee that helps determine and lead how these trainings function. As a core member, I get to have voice and determine how these trainings can go for other core members. And so one of the ways that I support the CMAC is by regularly asking other core members who aren't actively a part of the committee, hey, how can we best support you? How can we best support each other? So a lot of that work, when you talk about community, it's not just being in the community, but it's also like being with the community.
Yeah, thank you, Maya. So the idea of, I've been thinking a lot about leading by listening first and foremost, and by asking questions. And I'm trying to pay attention these days to the quietest person in the room, because I think we've all kind of internalized that, the folks that are speaking are the folks in charge, or the folks that are leading with a sense of authority, whatever that means, are the folks that are in charge. And it's, I'm learning so much through the practice of just kind of, exactly as you say, trying to be quiet and listen and ask some questions first and foremost, and let that kind of carry me from there. Thank you. Eliza, what's going on in the grief circle? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So actually the way that I encountered One Resilient Earth, which is the organization that I work with, I directed a play last year written by Kari Fitch called An Acorn for my thesis at Georgetown, which centered, stop it. It was centered on climate grief and climate loss, which is something that I feel we should, and I'm happy we're talking a lot about it in the circle, but it's a really important topic. It's not one that's necessarily, it's active, but it's not product forward, it's not content forward, it's turning that action on yourself and asking yourself how you feel about this very extreme changing global landscape around us. And some days you feel fine because you don't see it immediately in front of you. Some days are terrible for everyone because they're facing the consequences right now, and they happen for many years. But all of this is to say that I was connected by Caridad Fitch, who's the playwright, to this organization because they were doing some work with one of her plays. And they looped me into something called the Climate Worker Circle, which is a weekly meeting of climate workers from around the world who come and gather just to talk about how they are feeling. This is something that could not be done without the power of Zoom. And Caitlin, what you said earlier about the carbon footprint is so interesting. And I think there's a lot of quantifying carbon emissions in this global landscape, because I cannot imagine the last year of my life without this climate circle, where I'm meeting people who, often I will romanticize the experience of people in Scandinavian countries, because it seems their government has more of a priority, although certainly it is better than America, but like they're also struggling. They're also feeling grief and loss, and they're afraid of the future. And so I can just chat with people in South Africa and Canada, in the UK and Australia. And it is loosely centered around our feelings of grief and loss, and sometimes immense joy and gratitude. So it is this weird paradoxical, I have a paradoxical attachment to technology, because in many ways it's empowered me to do the work that I love to do and to engage with people I never would have gotten to meet, and work with this organization, which is based halfway across the world, and learn about a lot of crazy biotechnology that is government subsidized, that to me feels very dystopian, while taking advantage of technology in a way that produces carbon, and still doesn't necessarily have the best effect on the world. It's a challenge of the space, and it's a challenge of the time, of course, with COVID, but I think it's something that we have to keep reckoning with, and we shouldn't shy away from the fact that we're using technology in an effort to remove ourselves from the harmful effects of technology. Yeah.
Totally. There's something in there too, I think, about you're saying about quantifying and our desire to sort of quantify impact. I was listening yesterday to Robert McFarland on a webinar, who is an author, speak about how difficult it often is to quantify things like grief circles, things like art, things like performance, things like the work so many of you are doing. And that, I think, is why I love your poem so much, Maya, because love is not necessarily quantifiable, nor is movement, but we know it has huge impact on the world. And trusting that, I think, for me as an artist, is sometimes difficult, but important, for sure. Pauline, are you using technology in Kenya in a particular way? I know Instagram is active, as I mentioned, with Mock Cop, but how are you engaging with technology, or how aren't you, perhaps?
So for me, technology have like an advantage and disadvantage depending on like the place I'm from. Like disadvantage with accessibility. So the place I'm from, like not so many people can access technology. Yeah, and you find that people within my age group, most of them can really access technology, and that's where we actually get most of the information. Like the type of the education I got does not really like have a lot of things like the ones I know right now. So most of them I got them through internet and friends talking about them through internet, or meetings we've gone to that I've just received through the internet also. So for the youth, it is good. And for the work we are doing, the activism work we are doing, it have really helped a lot in terms of like connection and networking and creating awareness. However, I feel like other people, like it have like sidelined other people within the community, especially like the grassroots. So you get that most of the people that are at the local standard they are not able to access the technology, and they don't have that much information. To an extent, when you are bringing them that information, they really don't know it. They have not heard about it, so they like repel. They reject the information because they have not like heard about it. They have not even seen it in books or something like that. So that's where we like have a problem when it comes to technology. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. Access is major. And it sometimes feels like we're all, or I feel like I'm living multiple realities. There's like a technological reality, then there's like a reality of the body, and it's sort of wild. I want to ask you guys, I'm going to shift us slightly to talk a little bit about how you express your affection for planet Earth. This is such a beautiful question. I thank you for it. Do you have a favorite body of water, or a favorite place, a favorite flower? How do you express your affection for the natural world?
I recently have been going frequently to Rock Creek Park, which is fairly large. I would say it's pretty robust, although sort of physically enclosed. It's part of the national park system, but it's in Washington, D.C. And I went to school at Georgetown for 3 years, and I sort of circumnavigated like perfectly around Rock Creek Park and never breached any kind of entry point. I mean, I was so enclosed in the bubble of the hilltop. And so I've been twice a week this year to just go and not to listen to my music or my podcasts. I'm finding, I mean, now that I'm sort of oversaturated with my computer screen, it can feel destabilizing to encounter the world without any kind of something buzzing in the background. And so making that conscious effort to engage with this beautiful and like local space that has such a diversity of wildlife. I recently saw a wild turkey, which blew my mind because I'm from Dallas, Texas. And I told my friends, and everyone was like, they're everywhere up here. They're annoying. And I was like, I don't care. It's a big bird. But it was very exciting to me. I saw a woodpecker just a couple days ago. Another thing that blew my mind. But just that conscious unplugging, and it sounds trite, but and listening and sitting and not going to traverse the park or going to hike with a capital H, but just going to take advantage of, that's flawed language, but just be with the natural world, although it's everywhere. It's in every urban park. It's in the grass that sprouts up between sidewalk cracks. But just to be in sort of in a somewhat more immersive context has been really just an incredible blessing to me this year.
I think I'll go. I'm gonna drop this gem in the chat. I just bought my America the Beautiful National Park Pass. It's $80. It guarantees you admission to hundreds of national parks across the US. My sisters and I went up to Shenandoah Valley over spring break to go hiking, and they charge you entry fee. And it was $35 for my vehicle. And I was like, I don't like that. So let's get this pass. Definitely planning to do cross-road trips. I grew up in a family, we were adamant campers. Assateague Island is my favorite beach. It's my favorite camping site. They have wild horses. They have a facility where you can do crabbing and bodyboarding, hiking trails, biking. Of course, they have boating ramps, and it's just this little secret gem, 15 minutes from Ocean City. And it's never overcrowded. The water is beautiful. We see dolphins when we wake up. I love this place. We're going back this summer, and the park pass grants me entry. So I'm super happy. You know, get 3 uses in, and you got your money's worth. So I'm super excited for this summer.
So good. Thank you for that. It is in the chat, y'all.
So for me, I'm from like Lake Victoria region. Lake Victoria is the second largest water body in the world. So it's like 10 minutes walk from me. So that's where I get my water for cooking, water for washing plates, water for like bathing. And that's where we also get our food. Our staple food is fish and fingerlings. We call it omena, the small fish. So the reason as to why I love this is because it provides us generally with everything. So recently, the most part that made me amused is I engaged with a company called East Africa. It gets water hyacinth from Lake Victoria, and it uses it to produce energy, green energy, like renewable energy. So this thing that have been like polluting the lake, this plant, it's actually a plant that was introduced in the 70s. It have been like polluting the lake. It produces like 10,000 seeds every time. A flower produces like 10,000 seeds, and it's really covering the larger part of the lake. So like, if I got engaged with this company that was like taking the water hyacinth and going to like use it to make energy and also sanitizers, energy for cooking and also for lighting. So that really brought me more close to Lake Victoria, because like it's producing like, as much as water hyacinth is bad, it's affecting the lake, but there is an advantage that came with that, like wild species in it. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, I miss my island, but I think I've been so lucky to be constantly surrounded by bodies of water and wildlife. Like you often see just elephants and peacocks around, which is so incredible. But I think because after the civil war ended in Sri Lanka in 2009, it just like burst. The tourism industry just burst, and I feel like now the way that I try to express love for that nature back home and is by not engaging in certain activities. So I've never been whale watching. I don't think I've ever been like snorkeling or scuba diving in Sri Lanka itself, because the tourism industry hasn't adapted to being like sufficiently sustainable. So as much as I'd like to engage with wildlife in that way and or express love by engaging in that community or in that environment, I think I've started to not in realizing that that's more of an expression of love. But also being in Oregon and Eugene particularly, one of the biggest reasons I advocated to be here as opposed to DC was because there's so much nature that's very easily accessible. Just looking outside, I can see like mountain ranges and so many trees, and it's so nice. And that has been such a reprieve in this Zoom world of Zoom University, just like going on a walk at least once a day, even just like there's a really beautiful basketball court so close by that's surrounded by trees and surrounded by nature. So being able to do other things while still being immersed in nature has been very nice and a huge privilege.
Thank you. I love a version of loving that is not doing or withholding somehow. That's great. Okay, what are the core things that you are burning to say to your family, your friends, your community, your politicians? This is a big question, but let's have a go at it. What are the things that you really want people to know? We can popcorn if that's easier.
I'm very interested in people giving more thought to the narrative we tell about our natural world and our relationship with our natural world. And I put that in quotes because humanity we've been here for so long. There is no section of the earth that is untouched or pure, or I sort of struggle with the idea that there are places we can go to be in nature. I think that people would perhaps feel more actively involved in the environmental movement if there was consideration to the fact that like an urban space is just as much part of the world as Zion National Park, or name any sort of like contemporary, often greenwashed space that looks very much like our conception of utopia, or what the earth was like before humanity was here. But indigenous populations have been here cultivating the land for so long. We have not just, we don't encounter natural spaces that are devoid of human interaction. Humanity has been interacting and in harmony with the natural world for so long, and to see those natural spaces as untouched by humanity and therefore better is to discredit the work of so many indigenous populations and of people who are contemporarily working to replicate those kinds of regenerative and adaptive work and restorative work with the natural world. It's not a matter of going out and seeing nature, but realizing that you are a part of it. You are part of this great network, and often we are taking up too much space, and forcing that kind of weird schism of a view onto the world around us is I think limiting us and limiting the way that we understand our relationship to the world and our relationship to the climate.
So I'll go next. So like recently, like last week, I think I was reading on the updated zero draft for post 2020 biodiversity framework. So one of the 2030 targets goal that I read was that was about legalization of like harvesting of fauna and flora. So like I had a different thought of that on that. Apart from like allowing people to like harvest and use like flora, which is like, we can say that it's tradition for some people. Like you find like things like vegetables, traditional vegetables, stuff like that. People get it from like the plants. But now when it comes to fauna, we have cases in my area where people are killing like elephants to harvest like elephants and rhinos to harvest like their tusks and everything. So I wanted like to have my say on this. Of course, I can't have my say on that. I'm just a single person, but I wanted the need, and I just wanted that opportunity to have my say on the fauna part. So like, if I could like tell people and tell our leaders and the people that always make those policies to be adopted, that on this other part it's wrong, and this other part you are right, like it will be important, because like something like killing an animal to make like an ornament or to, like for a trophy hunting, like it's not something important. It's not even something that should be counted, unless like it was like a crop that you need to eat, yeah, but like animal that you're just hunting for a trophy, like I needed to have my say on that. Anyway, I don't make policies, so I said that let it pass, because like I don't have opportunity to say that. Yeah.
Thank you. You said it here. Someone will hear you. And I know you're saying many things in many other spaces. I have great faith in you. Thank you.
I think for me, what I am attempting to do with just my life's work, the way I practice my life, is to somehow secretly convince people their capacity and ability to evolve as nature evolves. And I think what I'm calling all of us to do as a humanity is to evolve. There are practices that are a part of our nature that no longer serve our humanity. If you go into your cell phone and look at the news and look through your feeds, you will see all of this ineptitude, this hatred, this confusion, this fear. And I think it's time that we evolve past those things and that we pick up new practices and new habits. And for the people who are afraid and say, but people want to be unfair, people want to be evil, people want to do these bad things, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to us, to we, and we need to do that. And we need to lead an example, and we need to evolve. And for those who refuse, let them become excruciatingly visible, because right now they're invisible, because we continue to maintain status quo in our course, and we need to change action. We're not going to save our environment. We're not going to save our people and our nations. We're not going to get better and recover and get healthy if we continue to practice these practices. So it's time to evolve. And, you know, that might not be buying all the sustainable products and consuming the most sustainable lifestyle as possible, but it's making small choices every day until it becomes habit, and habit builds nature. And then when you change your nature, you evolve. And I think that's what I'm calling people to do. And I'm trying to lead that by example, being in community with amazing women such as yourselves, and amazing places like the school we attended, and evolve. It's time.
It's time. Thank you, Maya. Ashani, I'm just going to hop in and say, I want to give Pauline a little bit of time to talk, keeping an eye on the clock here, about Mock Cop. And I want to share that something that Mock Cop is up to actually today, Earth Day, starting. So Pauline, do you want to speak a little bit about Mock Cop? I'm so sorry Bea isn't here with us to help you out. The floor is yours.
No problem. No problem. So
what's going on?
our mock COP was like a 2-week online event that brought together 350 delegates from like 141 countries. And 72% of these delegates were from the global south. Why did we have like a larger number from global south? We thought that people from the global south, they always don't have a say at COP events. Either they're not going there because of access of resources, and maybe their ideas are not taken into account. So like we were giving them opportunity to like bring in their ideas at this mock COP 26 event. So we came up with like a treaty. The delegates came up with a treaty that had like 18 policies. So one of the policies talked about education, and also like engaging youth at local levels to like involve their governments so that like they can be part of the envoy that make decisions at COP events. So currently we are like, we are engaging, the volunteers and the delegates are engaging governments to adopt some of these treaties. So the treaty can be found at www.mockcop26.com/treaty. So if you read the treaties, they're mostly talking about climate and ecological stuff. So we were stressing on the aim of the government to adopt this climate and ecological like cases going on, and also the need to involve youth in decision making, especially when it comes to climate actions. Yeah, so that's all about MOCCOP. Yeah, it's a little bit, it's brief.
No, that's so great. Thank you. And for those of you who aren't familiar, I should say COP26 is coming up in November. It's the annual, well, the 26th will be the 26th, but the COP is the annual UN climate conference. And the mock COP conference happened in the absence of the actual conference, which was canceled last year in light of COVID. And these extraordinary youth activists organized themselves and published this treaty that Pauline's talking about. And we're going to put a link in the chat. I also promised the mock COP leadership team that I would let everyone here know that there's a fundraiser. They are starting today and they are being matched through the end of the week. This money is going directly to frontline climate organizers all over the world. These are young people who are balancing school, life, activism. It's really extraordinary, urgent work. They are trying to mobilize politicians in advance of this upcoming COP26. I'm going to give my Earth Day money to mock COP26, and if you want to join me, I invite you to do that if you are able to. Thank you. We're going to pop a link in the chat. I do want to take a question or two from the audience for you folks. I have here, we began the chat reminding us that small is all. What is one small climate improvement you hope, think is tangible in this decade?
Okay, I'm actually really excited to answer this one. The death of fast consumption. We have fast food, fast fashion. Hell, we even have fast relationships with Tinder and the swiping and the consumption of each other. I hate our fast consumption culture, and I hope it dies in my generation. I don't want my children practicing this way of existing. It is unsatisfactory. You are never full and satisfied. And the way we consume is just so toxic to not only our environment, but our communities, ourselves, and our psyche. And I hope we stop it soon. And so one action that me and my sisters attempt to do, we love clothes and we love styling. So our closets are nearly 80% secondhand or recycled or upcycled or donated clothing. And all of our clothing that we no longer wear or use, we will eventually donate ourselves. And we are a family of like 5 children. So we do have a lot of clothing, but we always consume sustainably when it comes to purchasing our clothes and being mindful of which industries are we contributing to if we buy from Forever 21 or Shein. So making sure that we're making a conscious choice of keeping our closets sustainable. So I myself am sporting a white dress from my great grandmother and a shawl from one of my favorite mentors. So that's one action that I've taken to be more sustainable.
Anybody else want to hop in on that one?
I think I hope to see the conversation recentered around, and this maybe sounds contradictory to everything we've said, but recentered around the self a little bit. This is a little bit of a sad take, but the earth is going to be okay. It is us who would suffer the consequences of climate change. The earth can survive without oxygen. The earth as an object, as a place on which we live, as our home, will continue beyond us. This conversation should be about taking care of each other and taking care of ourselves. It's a grave conversation. It's a scary conversation. It feels very disarming to talk about something that is threatening the existence of our civilization, but it's threatening that. There's a lot of language around the earth is crying, the earth is hurting. This is true, but the earth is also our home. How do we feel? How are we hurting? Are we crying? That is similarly valuable. And bringing that kind of language into the conversation, I think, is an important step. And it's yes, we are doing damage, a lot of damage to the beautiful world that we live on, but we're also doing damage to ourselves. And finding ways to involve that aspect, the mental health aspect, in the conversation, I think is becoming a bit more. I'm seeing it a bit more in conversations like this, and conversations I'm having with friends and family. And I think it's something that we can all practice, whether it's a cultural shift in 10 years or something that we do every night as we go to sleep. Just a reflection of how we're feeling and checking in regards to our changing landscape and home.
So on my side, what's actually making me hopeful is the fact that I'm seeing like most of the people taking action when it's come to nature conservation or environmental conservation or even climate change. Like you cannot miss to see a single person in life every day, like who is not taking change. Like everyone everywhere is taking change, is making like change with regards to the current problems we are facing. And I'm hoping that with all these actions everyone is taking, we are like headed to the right direction and we'll have a positive change everywhere in the world. Yeah, thank you.
This is both inspired by something that Maya said all the time when she was at Georgetown on having hope that things will happen in our generation and making them happen, as opposed to being resigned that things take, an infinite amount of time. And this is also similar to Eliza's point on recentering the conversation or bringing some nuance into conversations. And I've been trying to pay a lot of attention to the relationship between safety and the environment. And the role of women. There's so much literature on how environments and neighborhoods that are more polluted are also more violent. And especially back home where I'm from, women or people in general just don't take public transport or can't walk, can't take the most sustainable option of mobility because of sexual harassment, and there's a huge rape culture, and that compromises people's mobility and therefore their ability to be more environmentally sustainable. So looking at nuancing those conversations, looking at intersectionality, looking at women, looking at safety, and deciding to change things right now, as opposed to waiting for some big meta cultural shift that's going to happen.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm noticing we just have a few moments left. There are so many great questions here. We've got questions about getting outside of capitalism. Whew, I would like to talk about that. I have a question about how we can get a hold of Maya's poem. Maya, we'll have to talk about how we can publish it somehow for folks to have access to, maybe alongside the Mock-Cop Treaty. That is in the works. Thank you so much, y'all, for these beautiful questions. This work continues is what I want you to know, and we will hold on to these questions. And I'm hoping to spend a lot of time with these amazing women in the many years to come. So more and more. I'm gonna begin to close out our time together here. If Bea had been able to join us, she was gonna sing for us. So I think we'll also have to return to that at another point in time. For now, she's singing in spirit from the Philippines. Thank you to this brilliant group of women panelists. Knowing you are in the world gives me the greatest hope. That's my answer. It's you. We need you. Thank God for you. I want to thank GEI, the lab, GHI, the Swedish Embassy, and Dramaten, and everyone who has given us an hour of their time today. I know that is precious, and we're really grateful that you chose to be with us on Earth Day. Today is part of a series of events hosted by Georgetown Environment Initiative. It's a new exciting series called Voices on the Environment that will be annual. I want to invite you to join us for the final event in this series, which will take place on Monday, April 26th, next week, from 5 to 6:30 p.m. EST. That event is called Writing Climate Change, a Roundtable with 3 amazing writers. To learn more, please click the link in the chat, which Wijdan is going to pop in just now. There she is. Thank you, Wijdan. We wish you all a beautiful, beautiful Earth Day. Be well.